All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So, one of my favorite things to do in draft season, right, when you're taking a look at all these different prospects, is compare them to other prospects from previous draft classes, or in some cases, future draft classes. If your team has like a lot of needs and you're facing really, really big decisions, whether it be in the top 5 or top 10. Specifically at big time positions as well. But in this one, I wanted to really focus in on the tight end position, right? Tyler Warren, he's being talked about a lot with the New York Jets. He's being mocked to the Jets a lot. Lots of Jets fans really, really like Tyler Warren's game. And, you're just kind of imagining him in the Inkstrand offense, working with Justin Fields, looking at the current tight end depth chart. Clearly Tyler Warren would be a humongous step in the right direction as far as increasing the talent level at that position. So with that said, I wanted to compare Tyler Warren to Brock Bowers. Of course, Brock Bowers coming out of Georgia, not what we saw this past season with the Raiders. That's not fair. We obviously don't have any NFL games of Tyler Warren to base that off of. So Bowers coming out of Georgia, Tyler Warren coming out of Penn State. What are the similarities? What are the differences? What were the positives? What were the negatives? The pro comparisons for both guys. And by the way, the reason why I feel like it's relevant to talk about it's because there's this question out there from a lot of fans. It's like, hey, if the Jets passed on Brock Bowers, who at the time was considered I don't really like to use this word lightly, but a generational type of prospect. But last season, it was the case. Brock Bowers actually was a generational type of tight end prospect. If the Jets were willing to pass on a guy like that at 10, why would they come back and take a lesser prospect in Tyler Warren at 7? How does that make any sense? I think for me, first of all, different GMs. I also think the prospects in last year's class were very, very, very good. Like for context, J.C. Latham, Joe Alt, Olu Fashanu were considered better tackle prospects than all of the offensive linemen in this year's class. The wide receivers as well, Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas, Marvin Harrison. I would take all three of those guys over every single wide receiver in this class. And not to mention Rome Odunze, who ultimately was a top 10 pick as well. So for me at the time, because I would have been cool with Bowers, but my preferred route was Olu. My thinking was I would rather take the franchise left tackle because we don't have a long-term option at the left tackle position, and we've struggled there year after year after year. And in turn, that makes the quarterback position, theoretically better, gives him more time to throw, and it also helps the running game out, on top of it. So it's really a guy who's going to be coming in and just checking a bunch of different boxes, improving the floor of the roster in just so many areas. And we also had a lot of questions with the offensive line at that point in time, right? Tyron Smith obviously coming in, Morgan Moses coming back, but we have a newcomer in John Simpson. We don't know how he's going to perform. AVT was coming off the injury. Like there were some question marks, and it was to me at least a nice feeling to say, hey, we're gonna go out and get a guy in Olu Fashanu, plug him at left tackle, and not have to worry about that position because he is literally the best pass blocking left tackle in this entire draft class. And by the way, for context, if Olu was in this class, he would be the 4th pick to the Patriots. And we selected Olu at spot number 11, right? We managed to trade back a pick, scoop up an extra draft asset, and still land our franchise left tackle here, in Olu. But looking at this year, because we already have 4 out of the 5 offensive linemen figured out, because we already have a stable of running backs, because we signed Justin Fields, and also looking at, how the board is kind of playing out, right, as far as like the top 15, top 20 prospects are concerned, Tyler Warren to the Jets makes a ton of sense here. And Bowers made sense for the Jets last year. I just think, the Jets valued the left tackle position more than the tight end position. Whereas this year, it's not the case. We're talking right tackle, tight end, wide receiver, maybe DT. But I do feel like DT would probably be the focus in round 2 here. But let's take a look at these two prospects here. Brock Bowers, right? What was Brock Bowers coming out? I think for me, the biggest thing with Bowers was the route running plus the acceleration. This guy can move. Like, Brock Bowers would just fly. So quick, so nimble on his feet. wasn't the biggest tight end of all time, right? Only 6'3", 243, but he had elite ball skills. You always felt like no matter who he played against, no matter the school or the player, every single time Brock Bowers was, in a passing concept, right? When he was a member of a passing play, he was more athletic than the person covering him every single time. All those linebackers that stepped out, like every single time, Brock Bowers had the athletic edge over those defenders. And so an NFL OC is looking at a guy in Bowers and is saying, okay, you know what? This guy can separate because of his great route running. He's more athletic than the majority of the players that are covering him. And that's probably going to continue on into the NFL. Maybe not as high of a clip, right? Because we all know the athletes in the NFL, but he has this dynamic athletic ability. And he's also really, really nimble. He's quick on his feet. He's light on his feet. So very strong hands, right? The contested catches. And it's not so much just like the high pointing of the football, but it's even on bullet passes. He still would manage to find a way to snag the football. It almost kind of felt like the ball was a magnet to Brock Bowers, right? The second the quarterback would let go of the football, it would be like it would somehow wind up in Brock Bowers' hands. No matter, again, who's in coverage, no matter, if the throw's a little behind, a little high. We saw some incredible catches from Bowers. One-handers. Like this guy, like he was the real deal. The pro comparison for Brock Bowers over and over again, George Kittle. Like it felt like wherever you looked, George Kittle was the Brock Bowers comparison. And it's not to say that he had zero weaknesses, right? There were some concerns about maybe so-so as a run blocker. Again, 6'3", under 250. He wasn't really labeled as like that biggest, the biggest guy out there. But let's be honest, if you're drafting Brock Bowers, really, if you're drafting a tight end in the top 20, really first round, you're drafting that player for the receiving capabilities. You're not drafting a blocking tight end in round one. That's just the bottom line. So, because Bowers was such a dynamic threat as a pass catcher, that's what separated himself from all of these different tight ends that come out year after year. So, I mean, obviously an elite prospect, but we're looking at a guy in Tyler Warren being mocked in the same kind of range here. Very good tight end, but maybe not up to the standard of a Brock Bowers. There's some similarities. There's some differences. Let's dive into it. I think one of the biggest differences that separate Warren from Bowers is the overall size and physicality, right? And it's not to say that Bowers is some weak player or some small, player out there running around. But compared to Tyler Warren, 6'6", 260. Again, Brock Bowers, 6'3", 245-ish. So that's 15 plus pounds and 3 inches. That is a big difference, right? Especially when we're talking about the tight end position where, you're going to make contact, you're going to have to block, you're going to have to make contested catches. To have extra height, to have extra weight on your opponent obviously is very, very beneficial for a position like that. Tyler Warren, very, very athletic. I mean, he's lining up as Wildcat quarterback. He was a former high school quarterback. You can literally put him in the backfield and hand the football off to him. You can run quarterback draws with him. You kind of feel like he's like a trick play specialist type of guy. You can throw the ball back to him and he can hit a receiver, down the sidelines with him throwing the football. Just so many different creative ways that you can use Tyler Warren. He's a gamer, again, physical, aggressive, loves the contact. I mean, he's constantly making these crazy catches where he's having to adjust to the football. His ball skills are really good, tracks the football in the air really well. I mean, he's coming off a season where he put up wide receiver 1 numbers, 104 catches, over 1,200 receiving yards with 8 touchdowns, had 7 touchdowns the year before in a lesser role. As far as the pro comparison, one player that gets thrown out a lot is Gronkowski, right? Because Gronk was just such a big, intimidating, physical tight end who can still hurt defenses up the seam, over the middle of the field, someone who can just torch zone coverages, someone who corners don't really look forward to trying to tackle. Daniel Jeremiah has been all over it. He's been, comparing Gronk or comparing Warren to Gronk for a while now, for months now. One other name, or one other pro comparison that I did see, it was from Lance Zierlein over on the NFL Network website, was Jeremy Shockey, and I felt like that's a cool old school comparison. I love when people compare current, like, modern day players to really, really good players back in the day. For example, Ashton Genty being compared to LaDainian Tomlinson. But Jeremy Shockey, I felt like, was an interesting one. But for me, when I'm watching Tyler Warren, the player that stands out is Greg Olsen, right? Again, that big physical tight end who can make a lot of athletic plays with the football in the air, make a lot of athletic plays as a ball carrier, someone who's not going to be going down on first contact, someone who's seeking contact, not looking to step out of bounds, not looking to get down, because there's surprisingly a lot of tight ends that do that. A lot of tight ends, not every tight end, even though they're all kind of built in a similar fashion, there's certain guys that just play with a specific level of aggression that love the contact. And again, when it comes to Tyler Warren, you just feel like he wants the ball in big critical situations, those third downs, those, fourth in goals, just big situations in games. It's like, where's Tyler Warren? Penn State is going to try to identify him and get him the football, right? Everyone knows the football is going to him, and defenses just have a tough time stopping him. Like, you just have to account for where these guys are at. So let me know your thoughts down below in the comments section. I thought this would be a cool little video to do. Again, just being objective here, I think Brock Bowers was the better tight end prospect, but I don't think Tyler Warren is miles behind him. And I also think, given the current state of the Jets roster, with us having some running backs, having offensive line pieces already figured out outside of right tackle, it maybe makes maybe it's more realistic that the Jets go with a tight end at spot number 7 because of what he can do, obviously at that position, but him helping Justin Fields, him helping out the running game. He's kind of checking a lot of different areas and boosting them for this Jets offense. And also, one thing I do want to say about Tyler Warren, something that I feel like needs to be talked about a little bit more. You listen to James Franklin, you listen to Penn State players talk about Tyler Warren, like, they rave about him. He's a quiet guy, super, super humble, but they say he is just awesome off the field. A leader, people want to be around him, and that, I feel like, the Jets need. We need some culture changers. We need some tough physical players. You're going back and you're listening to Aaron Glenn's press conference, Darren Muji's press conference, right? That intro presser. They're talking about the value of adding, guys that want to be here, the physical presence, just those like blue collar types of players. And that's what Tyler Warren is. So if the Jets decide to go with like Armand Membu, or they want to trade back, or they select a wide receiver, Mason Graham, whatever the case is, that's not going to be a bad pick. That's the beauty of pick 7. That's the beauty of where the Jets are currently at with their roster, right? We can go in a bunch of different ways. It's like a double-edged sword. On one side of the coin, you can say, all right, well, the roster construction hasn't been the best because you have so many team needs, right? The bad teams are typically picking in the top 10. The bad teams have a lot of team needs. New England, Jacksonville, Carolina, teams like New Orleans Saints, New York Giants, where the good teams, the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Lions, the Bills, those are the teams that have maybe like one or two team needs, where they're just kind of approaching. I mean, that's like the Eagles approach the draft. Like, we're going to take the best player. We're going to plan for the future. We're going to be 1 year ahead of all these different moves. So, hey, when someone does hit the open market and they want a mega deal and we can't afford to pay it, we already have that former second rounder, that former first rounder there to take his place. Buffalo, very, very similar. Kansas City, you feel like there's that blueprint on the defensive side. They got to figure out the tackle position, though. But anyway, let me know your thoughts down below. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, go Jets.